Most business owners don't lose because of bad ideas. They lose because they misunderstand the system they're operating in. Across thousands of commercial disputes, a consistent pattern appears. Intelligent, capable, experienced business owners make the same set of legal mistakes, not because they lack intelligence, but because they operate with a set of assumptions that do not match reality, and those assumptions remain invisible until something goes wrong. This channel examines disputes structurally, not emotionally, not reactively, but through the lens of power, procedure, and control. Because those who understand these dynamics make different decisions long before disputes arise. Most business relationships begin informally. A conversation, a handshake, a shared opportunity, trust, momentum, speed, and in that early stage, informality feels efficient, flexible, practical. But systems do not operate on informality. They operate on structure, documentation, clarity, defined obligations. And this creates a gap. The way business owners think relationships work and the way systems interpret them. Trust is not a legal structure. One of the most common issues in disputes is not what was agreed. It is what can be demonstrated. Business owners often believe, we had an understanding, we discussed it, it was clear. But clarity in conversation does not equal clarity in structure. Messages become fragmented. Emails lack precision. Key terms are never formalized. And over time, the narrative becomes unstable because different participants remember the same interaction differently. And once that happens, the dispute begins to form. What you can prove matters more than what you meant. Modern business communication creates a unique problem. Speed replaces structure. Messages are sent quickly, without review, without context, without strategic consideration. Short-form communication platforms amplify this. Messages become informal, ambiguous, emotionally reactive, and in isolation, each message seems harmless. But disputes do not analyze messages in isolation. They analyze them collectively. Every message is evidence. Every thread is a record. Patterns emerge. Contradictions appear. Tone shifts become visible. And suddenly, communication becomes a source of vulnerability. Another common factor is emotional decision-making. Business disputes often involve money, control, and reputation. These are not neutral variables. They trigger strong reactions, frustration, defensiveness, urgency, and under pressure, decisions are often made quickly. Messages are sent impulsively. Positions are taken prematurely, and actions are driven by emotion rather than strategy. The system, however, does not interpret emotion. It records behavior. Emotion is invisible, behavior is permanent. Many business owners operate on assumptions. They assume the other party understands their position. They assume the agreement will be honored. They assume the relationship will continue. They assume the system will interpret events fairly. But systems do not operate on assumptions. They operate on evidence, structure, process. Assumptions collide with structure. Assumptions tend to fail. Consider a hypothetical situation. Two parties enter into a business arrangement. There is trust, momentum, shared expectations. They communicate regularly, mostly informally. Decisions are made quickly, without detailed documentation. Over time, pressure increases. A disagreement emerges. Each party believes the position is clear. But when examined structurally, the situation is different. Messages are incomplete. Agreements are ambiguous. Intentions are unclear. And the dispute begins to form. Not because the relationship failed initially, but because the structure was never clearly defined. The structure was never defined. Everything that followed was predictable. The objective is not to eliminate risk. That is not possible. The objective is to understand where risk accumulates. Informality, ambiguity, assumption, emotional reaction. These are not immediately visible risks, but they compound over time. And when pressure is introduced, they become exposed. Very few business owners examine disputes from this perspective, but those who do begin to recognize patterns early. They structure differently, they communicate differently, they respond differently. If that perspective is useful, consider subscribing. If you are currently navigating a commercial or legal situation and would like strategic perspective on the structure of your position, you may contact thestrategicbrief71j@gmail.com. Any discussion would be general strategic commentary only and not legal advice. Most disputes do not begin with conflict. They begin with assumptions, informality, and misaligned expectations. By the time the conflict becomes visible, The structure has already been set.